make sure, I know we have limited time, but still a lot of time at the same time, right? But I want to make sure folks feel like you're able to participate in the conversation. So we'll have some curated questions up here, but then we'll also take questions from you all as well. So if you have them, feel free to write them down, put them in your notes, all those things. But I do want to ask one question before I ask this question to the panel. And it's not a question out of embarrassment or anything like that, but how many of you are first-time voters, if at all? Do we have any first-time voters in the room? Okay, just want to make sure as we go into the context around, right, one of the questions is, what is the midterm election? So I want to make sure we're not asking questions that we don't necessarily need to go over with this group, right? And so is anyone unclear on what is in a midterm election, why we have midterm elections, etc.? Okay, so in that case, let's bypass that question just because I want to make sure we get to the root. But if you want to explain,
let's not bypass that question.
No, I'm going to reframe the question.
Okay.
So I'm not going to bypass it in full, but I'm going to reframe it, right?
Okay.
As far as the midterm elections for 2026, right? What does that mean today? What does that mean for our children? And when we say what's on the ballot, a lot of people often say who's on the ballot. But I'm asking you all what's on the ballot, but beyond the answer of our freedom, because we know that.
Right.
And so what are the issues, what are the things that folks in this room need to take outside of this room as they leave? And anyone?
Okay.
Go for it.
This midterm election, the United States Constitution says that every 2 years, members of the lower house of government, the Congress, the House of Representatives, stands for election. They are elected every 2 years. You get to decide if they've done their jobs and should be replaced or should they come back. You make that decision. So that is why we have midterm elections. What's on the ballot? Besides our freedom, affordability. Can you afford to buy a house? Can you afford, if you own a house, to refinance your house? Can you pay your student loans and get a car? Can you buy a car? Can you afford? When I went to buy groceries this week, I picked up a package, of ground sirloin, because it's lean and low fat. $8.99 a pound.
For ground meat.
For ground meat. That's what's on the ballot. What's on the ballot is that the people who are running this country now don't care. They don't know that ground meat is $8.99 a pound. And they don't care because they don't eat ground meat. Think about it. That's not what they do. They are busy selling little meme coins and doing crypto and making lots of money for themselves and others. So what's on the ballot is the lifestyle and expectancy of the American people. When you wake up every morning, what do you want your children to be safe. You want to live in a safe neighborhood. You want to be able to go and buy groceries and maybe have enough to go to the movies on Friday night. You want to be able to pay for your gas. You don't want to have to go take money out of your savings account to fill up your car. That's what's on the ballot. That's what's on the ballot. And if you can't go vote for that, I think everybody in this room is going to go and vote. Your call to action today is to make sure that you take 5 people with you, that you help 5 people understand why it's important to vote, and that you go ring their doorbell on October 19th and say early voting has started. Let's make a plan. Why don't we go? Let's go vote, and then we'll go to lunch afterwards if we can still afford to go to lunch. Okay?
As long as we don't eat ground meat.
As long as you don't eat ground meat, you know, so, because let me tell you, the stuff that my grandmother used to cook, you know, they put some neck bones in some beans and some cornbread. Do you know how much neck bones are?
$3
Neck bones are almost $5 a pound. So, I mean, really, people, that's what's on the ballot.
I'd go so far as to say the ballot is on the ballot.
Right,
With the SAVE Act being proposed in Congress right now, the ability to access the ballot is up for election now. We talk about this being the midterm, it's the middle of the president's term of office. And so it's really a referendum on what it is that we believe the president is doing in terms of a job. Is he doing a good job with the Congress that he has, or is he doing a bad job with the Congress that he has? My position is that he's doing a bad job with the Congress that he has. I believe that he would do a bad job with any Congress, but I don't think that he would be able to get as much done with a Congress that is antithetical to what he thinks is appropriate. So if you're interested in your water supply, young people, then you certainly want a Congress that is going to put limits on server farm development and the advancement of artificial intelligence. If you're interested in your service to this country, I'm a military veteran, I'm an Army veteran. My father was an Air Force veteran of the Vietnam War. My brother and sister were veterans. My wife was a veteran. If you're interested in whether or not you will be compelled to engage in military service or not, that's on the ballot. Because unless there are some curbs put on this military engagement in Iran, that's next up for you. And I have no problems with people wanting to serve their country. I have a problem with people being compelled to do so against their wishes. And then being told that they're beardos or weirdos because they have pseudofolliculitis barbae, which most black men do. So there's, at one point, an effort to exclude us and an effort to compel us to serve. I do think that your ability to earn the kind of money necessary to impact politics in a real way is on the ballot. This is an historically black college or university. With the anti-DEI efforts that are being imposed left and right, universities like this are at risk, I believe, of being shut down. So our ability to get a free and fair education that you talked about is on the ballot. So it's more than what we see. And explaining that to people, everyone in this room gets it. You don't come out on a Saturday this hot in the summer to talk about these issues and not get these issues. What I think we're all hoping to do is contextualize the issues in such a way that you can carry this message to your friends and family members who don't get the issues, so that they'll understand what's on the ballot, because so many of us will just say, that's not my business. I'm not concerned about that. It's all of our business, literally and figuratively. Our ability to do business is on the ballot. Thanks.
Community, we need to figure out what position on the ballot connects to that so they fully understand. So I think to Ms. Pam's point, even explaining, right, this is why we have elections every 2 years, and then the context of saying, well, if the president's not doing well with the Congress they have, give them a different one, and that's why this thing is happening in your community, is a really, really big piece of information, or really piece of information gap. And that's truthfully why the Houston Campaign School is here to say, well, how do we fill those gaps? How do we give folks the information here to go out and say it out there? Rather than saying, well, young people don't care, it's how do we figure out how young, or what young people care about, and how to bring them into this room. So I really appreciate those comments.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I'm extremely honored to be here. I think this is such an important event. And when it comes to these elections, 435 seats in the House of Representatives, 435 seats in the House of Representatives are going to be up for election. And that is huge, because when we see all of the negative things that are coming out in D.C., those folks are going to be up for election. So your health care is going to be on the ballot. Housing affordability is going to be on the ballot. And just think, you have people trying to tell you what kind of food you deserve to buy if you had SNAP. These are the legislators. These folks are going to be on the ballot. Whether people feel like you should have the right to bail, the judges are going to be on the ballot, the state representatives are going to be on the ballot. And I think it's important that we know, like, we just don't just vote in the presidential elections. Because a lot of times, you know, people knew to come out and vote in presidential elections, but when it's time for the midterms, the turnout wasn't where it should have been. And so it's important that we continue to get this message out. It's important to vote midterms. Let's bring a Congress that's going to be representative of what we want. And let's not just wait for the results to come out and not participate in it, because we have to be active in our participation in this. Thank you.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit around criminal justice. And we know safety is a really big concern in our community. And so as we are thinking about the Carmelo Anthonys, the Nolan Wells, what does the talk and conversation need to be for our youth, whether that is in community and how do we make sure we're building safe communities, but then also as we're going to the polls and making sure they're safe there as well?
So one thing I would say is know who your friends are. Because everybody's, talk about let's get together, let's unite, let's do all of these things. But as we're seeing what's happening on television, there's a divide on how safe our babies are when they're in groups where they're the minority. And I tell my kids all the time, investigate who are the people, who are their parents, because it's important. And it's so sad that we're seeing what's happening, but it's not that it's uncommon. This is something that has been going on historically, and we're still fighting this fight, right? The DA is an elected official. He determines which charges are being made. The police officers that come to arrest you, if it's a constable, the sheriff is over that. Those are elected positions. The judges, whatever they determine, those are elected positions. So these positions have so much responsibility over your lives. Even if you think like, this is politics, I don't mess with politics. Politics is involved in every aspect of your life, from the time you get in your car to the time you came here. Thank you.
So I'm going to speak not as a police officer, I'm going to speak as a father. So my 14-year-old is here this afternoon. He's upstairs. My 14-year-old is here this afternoon. He's upstairs. It was extremely important to me that he got up, got off of that game, and came here today for a multitude of reasons. One, I wanted him to walk around and see where his daddy went to school, to see a HBCU, but more importantly, to get some information. But going back to safety, as she stated, know where your children are. Know what your children are doing on their phones. Know what they're doing on their computers. Know where they're going. My son, when he rolls, when he walks, Life 360, and I'm not endorsing Life 360, but I know where he is. I know how far he is. I know how fast he's moving, whether he's walking or he's riding. So if that walk turns into a run, and it's going in a direction that he and his mom did not tell him to go, I know there's a problem. But from a law enforcement standpoint, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because not all police officers are good. So I'm not going to sit here and act like they're all good. I think the majority of them are. But when you've had a bad experience with the police officer, whether it be your child or yourself, do not be afraid to reach out to Internal Affairs. That's what Internal Affairs' job is. That is part of my job, to investigate those things. And we need to look at those things. We police ourselves. We police ourselves. And if there's something that needs to be corrected, it needs to be corrected. And when you go to the polls, know what the rules are. Know what the law is. Know what you can and can't do. Don't put yourself in a position so that they have to say something to you. But also, do not be intimidated when you go to the polls. Do not allow that to deter you from going to the polls. When my wife and I go to the polls, we make sure we put our phones up. We do not communicate. We don't have any papers in our hands. We don't wear anything that says I'm voting for anybody. You know, if you have any questions, you talk to, you know, the folks that are there. You know, don't take any pictures in there. So, but, you know, again, you know, from wearing both of those hats, you know, we have to take care of our children. I only have one, and I will not give him to society. I refuse to allow him to go before the judge if I can help it, okay? But that starts at home. That starts at home, and that started when he was little bitty, and he's almost as tall as I am now, and it's not gonna stop. He can get taller than me, okay? I'm the big bully. Thank you.
Please, no, go ahead.
Okay, so to piggyback off of Ms. Joy, as you as well, I would say, though I don't have children, just based off of the conversations that my parents have with my brothers, because I have two brothers, it's shifting the conversation from just telling them be careful to actually how our systems work, and besides our systems, how society is too. Because at the end of the day, we're Black people. We know our history. Hopefully all of us know our history. But we know how we are perceived in society. We know how when we step out of our homes, that we have a target on our backs just because of the skin of our color. So teaching our children at early ages what life could be like, I think is an important step as well to parenthood, and also teaching them, okay, how to navigate those systems, how to be a part of those systems, knowing who your friends are, how they are, where they come from, their parents, you know. Because once I had a friend, she was real cool, but I went to her house and they had a Trump sign in the front. My mama didn't know. I didn't tell her till after the fact, and she was like, I'm gonna tie your butt up because you know better. But besides that, just teaching our children how those systems work is important too.
Ma'am?
Did you have something to add?
Always, but I can remain silent.
He's the judge.
Look, you know, I would say to young people, and there are some in the room, get a worldview about what it is that you think the role of law enforcement is. So I'm going to talk to you both from a 50,000-foot view and then bring it to a very granular street-level view. From a 50,000-foot view, I have a worldview. I don't know that everyone agrees with it. I believe that the role of government and law enforcement is to serve business, to make sure that our communities are safe so that people who go to work and earn and buy can trust that their goods and things will be safe and secure, and what they do to earn it will be protected. Our streets we don't want potholes in them, because we want to be able to get to and from our jobs, to and from stores, to and from schools. That's my worldview. Agree with it or disagree with it. That's why I think that government exists, is to make sure that all of us collectively can do the things that we want to do to live life more abundantly. From a very granular point of view, when dealing with the police in real time, pause when agitated is something that I would want every young person to understand. For us as citizens, when we encounter the police, it is usually a novel event, a one-time event, and we can get caught up in that moment. For the police, who are recording everything we say, it is just what they do. They will say things to antagonize you, to get you to speak about what's going on, because that's what they do. They can lie to you. It's legal to lie if you're a police officer to get people to confess. Our Supreme Court has said that is true. And so when you're in those moments and things are heated, what can you change with the behavior that you're exhibiting at that time? Can you stop a police officer from arresting your friend by yelling, "Don't arrest him, don't touch him, don't"? No, you can't. You can't impact that, but you can say to your friend, be quiet, don't say anything, wait until a lawyer is here. You can change that dynamic. But when you act out in that moment, you put yourself at risk of being arrested, yourself. which doesn't do any good for anybody. So I would say develop a worldview. I am beginning to disagree with the worldview. I am a lifetime member of the NAACP. I, no offense, believe that leadership in our community needs to be decentralized and more local. I am beginning to agree more with democratic socialists than the Democratic Party, because I see where the democratic socialists are about changing things right now, right here at this level, and running things from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. When I was younger, I saw things the way that my parents saw them. Now that I'm older, I see things the way that my daughter sees them. And so having a cohesive worldview, really understanding what it is that's going on is important. And I'll shut up in just a second. A long second. If you are young and you have never done a Public Information Act request, a Freedom of Information Act request of the police, of government, to see what it is that they're doing, how many of us they are arresting, and what they're doing to them once they arrest them, and you're not putting that up on your social media, then you are not doing your job. They have to tell you what they're doing. And you have the right to find it out. Go find it out. Don't just talk about, I'm not going to use profanity. Don't talk about nonsense in your social media. Talk about good sense in your social media. And put these people on blast so that everyone understands what they're doing in real time. Thanks.
I don't have a son. I have 2 daughters. But I was raised by activist parents. My dad sent me to Reverend Lawson's nonviolent protest school in 1964 when I was about to graduate from high school in 65, because we were doing demonstrations. And he told me, he said, you know, you're going to go up to the University of Texas, and I'm sending you there to get a degree. I'm not sending you there to get expelled. You have a hot head, so you need to go learn how to comport yourself. And at that school, we would sit like we were at a lunch counter demonstrating, and they'd flick ashes on us, and they'd call us the N-word, and we had to sit there.
Pour water on you.
Pour water on you, and you sat there.
Ammonia on the counter.
You learned. So when did this ever, you know, we're like, nobody's going to do this. Because we grew up in segregated communities. We were cherished children. Yeah. And if you were a smart kid, you were really cherished in the community. I get to the University of Texas at Austin in 1965, 1 month after the Voting Rights Act had been signed. And I'm walking out of Bats Hall 3 weeks later, and a white girl got up in my face this close, and she said, "Why do you niggas want to be in school with us?" And she spat on me.
She already got a case.
Well, but I had been to Reverend Lawson's school.
Yes.
And I did what I was taught. He said, bullies do that. He said, first, don't touch it. When you touch it, you acknowledge it, and you transfer power. Just act like she hadn't done a damn thing. But I was holding on to my books. The next thing you do is you holler at them. You say, "Get out of my face." I said a little. I said some other words. But she backed up, gave me space to walk away. So all I'm saying is, tell your children, help your children, role play with your children. Because if you are stopped, the first thing, you get nervous. You see, blip, 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 blip. You're nervous. And you're like, oh my God, you know, breathe. He's gonna ask you for your driver's license, he's gonna ask you for the registration. Know where it is, don't be fumbling before you get in the car. Teach your children where it is, where is the registration? It's in the center console. That's what you do, you help prepare them, so.
Thank you. So I would say both Judge Davis and Ms. Pam, I'm glad you opened the door, so I won't be a little off base with my comment. I think your NAACP comment, I think, is actually a very on point one, right? And I can say that as someone who serves on a national board with them, right? I think to what lesson you just taught us is what we're missing. And a lot of our organizations, I think we have taken a very national approach, a very centralized approach, and we miss moments like today, where you can share the lessons that should have been passed down. And so I would say I'm always our own biggest critic. I'm our biggest, I think you could ask Reverend Lilly. He's seen me in many rooms, probably cut up a little too much, just to explain, hey, I don't think we're doing what we need to do, right? How do we decentralize our leadership, our tactics, to make sure we're actually reaching the people and they're getting the messages and they're getting the lessons that they need to. And I say that whether it's NAACP, whether it's Urban League, whether it's, I have my D9 sister, whether it's AKA, whether it's Delta, whether it's Alpha, whoever, right? How do we actually get back to the grassroots? We're missing the grassroots, thinking that the fruit is going to be different. The roots are not here.
That's right.
Right now I feel like we don't have any roots. And so how do we get to the root, right? It goes back to the conversation of how do we get the actual message about why this election is important. Everybody hears, oh, this is the most important election of your life. Why? If you can't tell me why, then I don't have a purpose in doing that thing, right? The biggest lesson I learned as an intern in my undergrad was if somebody can't tell you why they shouldn't be doing it.
That's correct.
And so if you can't explain it to me, what makes you think you can convince somebody else? That's not influence. And so how do we bring influence back to our own community? So I think my last question for you all before we open up to the audience is, in some of our conversations we talked about internal, right? We've talked about how do we get these messages inside our own house? How do we have a clean house before we try to go clean somebody else's house, right? And so how do we really build those strong communities where we can actually get the lessons and information out, whether that is what to do when your teen is stopped by a police officer, or what to vote on this ballot, or what does affordability look like? How do I navigate this system? How do we truly build this strong community that we need so that this society looks like what we need?
I think it goes back to having those one-to-one conversations, right? And I think now what I've seen is a lot of people, there's a disconnect that's there. Like, we don't go to people's homes anymore. We don't go visit uncle or aunt so-and-so, or let's just go over here and just sit and just have those family dinners where we would just get around because grandma passed away. So I think we have to get back to having those personal conversations and just asking people, like, what's important to you? And don't just assume that you know it, right? Because we're not a monolith. People have different issues of what's important to them and what's motivating them. My issue may be different from someone else's. And so if we're not even having those basic conversations, then it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
One thing I would say, so though I'm here as assistant in the system, I'm also a civic engagement program manager for Public ISD. And through that role, I learned a lot about youth engagement, but also how to grab the parents and the community members to be involved as well. And the first thing was to meet them where they are. Again, you don't know what people go through every day. We live in an area, well, our district is in an area where half of the people are on SNAP, have to go to food drives in order to have groceries. The other half, they have HEBs everywhere, Whole Foods, all that good stuff. So I learned a lot about meeting people where they are, but also that portion of education too. You could bring in education at any point of a conversation, but the first step is to figure out the issues that they face. What do you care about as an individual? What do you care about for your family? And once we get to that point, well, did you know that this specific role in government impacts that? No, I didn't know that. Oh, well, it does, and actually they're on the ballot for this election coming up. Are you registered to vote? No, I'm not registered to vote. Okay, let's get you registered to vote, and then we could continue the conversation and, have multiple touch points to get you to where you need to go so you can vote confidently. Because that's the biggest thing. People just register people and then send them on their way to go vote. We have to think about that gap between when you register someone to them actually casting their ballot, and that's that educational, one-on-one, being personal, figuring out their issues as well.
I would say that I'm glad that the face of influencing has changed. Since it initially started, people becoming influencers, it was very much about lifestyle choices and things of that nature. Now influencing is about actually changing the way people think about what's happening to them on a daily basis. I would say for young people, leveraging any influencer status that you have to get the message of change out. You know, for me, I'm in my 60s, I'm very much engaged in retail politics. I'm still about door knocking and things that don't necessarily work for the people who are out voting and making a difference. But I love what Christian did. I mean, he took his message directly to young people in a way that they got. You know, I'm still fooling around with Facebook, but there are so many other platforms, and I would encourage young people to push that envelope. Use that influencer status to change minds, to educate. But once again, you have to have a cohesive worldview to pass it on. We're not gonna, some of you guys will, you're young and you'll do it. I'm not. That has passed me. But it hasn't passed you. And you can make that change in a way that I just don't get right now. And the next thing that's coming along, you guys will learn how to use AI in a way that creates messages that young people get. I love to think that most law enforcement officers are good people, but I'm not sure. My wife was one for 23 years, and I thought she was a good person. Well, I still do. Correct that record. But the message that I would say that, you know, you would want to put out there is that while you want to think everybody's a good person, they're not. But what you can assure yourself of is that they're human. And in interacting with humans, here are things that can keep you safe. And push that message out there in a way that young people get. And it comes easier from young people to young people than some old guy to a young person. So anyway, there I am.
Trust. Trust is important. You can't influence someone if they don't trust you. You have to have, we all operate in circles of influence. I may go to church and somebody says, oh, that's the voting lady, you know. So if they ask me, how do I get my ballot, they know that I'm probably good. They trust that I'm going to give them an answer that they can rely on. If I go to sorority meetings, somebody may say, oh, that's the woman who, you know, leads such and such a group, and she does that very well. And we can trust her with operationalizing this program. You have circles of trust. The first lesson I learned about that was when I learned to knock on doors to ask people to register to vote. And the first door I knocked on, the man said, how much does it cost? Because he'd been paying poll tax. I said, it's free. He said, free? He said, sugar, come here. We're going to register to vote. I signed them up, and this was back, I couldn't vote, but this was back when anybody could help somebody sign up to vote. This was in 1966. He said, now, sugar, I'm going to go with you to all my neighbors because they don't know you, but they know me.
Come on.
And he went with me, and we signed up everybody on that block. Because, not because of me, because of him. So you own your ability to influence. You may think you don't, but there are probably at least 10 people who trust you. And if you tell them your why, and you ask them what is their why, and you listen, they will trust you and they'll go vote.
Okay, I have time for one rapid fire question before July comes in here and gives me a little hook like Apollo. So if you have a burning question, feel free to raise your hand. Go for it.
So my question is, how do you start these conversations with children while still kind of preserving their innocence?
Good question.
So,
Remember I said rapid fire.
so I would say use the different platforms. Jack and Jill is one. Boys and Girls Scouts, Boys and Girls Club. We're in Jack and Jill. So these are conversations that you can have at those different levels, and you tweak that conversation based upon that age group. So I've had certain conversations with my son at every stage. Now we're at 14. So now, to their point, we have to start having these conversations of when you are stopped by a police officer. Because everybody's not going to be daddy. Does that make sense? Everybody's not going to be your daddy. And so make sure you have your hands. My wife will tell you, third row, we've had the conversation. I've taught her, when you're stopped by a police officer, everybody's not going to be Lieutenant Babe. Have your hands where they can see them. Turn the lights on. Let all the windows down. Don't do anything. Don't do any movements that's going to make him nervous, him or her nervous. Okay? You don't want a police officer to be nervous. But let me add this right quick. To that point about the TPI, most agencies have a little box on their chest. It's called a body cam. And when that red light is going, everything everybody's saying, you and him or her, is being recorded. And you can get a copy of that. But just make sure that when that video comes out, it aligns with everything
That you said.
that you told everybody that you wanted standing behind you.
That's what your mama used to tell you.
Because when we come and stand behind you to support you, and they play the video, and something else comes out, now we like, well, you start, the crowd behind you starts getting light. Does that make sense? But use those different platforms.
Did you have something to add?
Are you aware
sorry.
of Leah? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, say, did you
I
have
was gonna say storybooks. There's a lot of books that are out. Last year we implemented a new program for elementary students and middle school, where we actually brought them books about civic engagement. Like there's one like Leo's First Vote. Kids, when you ask them questions, you think they won't know, but they know. They know what an election is. But also fun activities. Like we do mock elections, we do like little debates, but we talk about your favorite cereal, your favorite team. You know, make it more fun and, you know, understanding to them and their little mindsets. Because they are sponges. They don't know, of course, the magnitude of civic engagement, things that we know. So I would say just not dumb it down, but go to their level. Make it fun, make it engaging, and it'll stick to them. And then they'll go on to their parents, hey, we did this today. I learned about this today. That's how you get through the youth.
Okay, unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions. Oh, sorry.
One thing real quick. I find myself saying this at all kinds of events now. If you have kids and they're getting ready to go to college, encourage them. If you can't demand, encourage them to go to an HBCU. I'm a graduate of 2. I've told all of my mentees and folks, don't ask me to write no more letters of recommendations for you to go to a PWI. I ain't gonna do it. I believe that we, at this stage in our lives, we have to send our kids to campuses where they are celebrated and not tolerated. Because what Pam told us about what that girl did to her, that stuff is still happening because they're still white folks on white folks' campuses that don't believe we ought to be there. When I was at Indiana University in 1970-something, I was trying to get my committee together for my doctoral studies. And they kept telling me, I registered, had all my classes laid out and progression that I was going to do. And one of them white folks on my committee said, Alexander, why are you, all of your internships, your practicums and your internships, you want to be you want to go to the Black Culture Center here on campus, and you want to go to, all of it's colored, all of it's black, and he looked at me and he said, you know, we don't have a white culture center here at the university. And I said, hell, this is a white culture center. Point is that what we're dealing with now are the same things that we've been dealing with all along. Okay,
Okay. We're gonna wrap it up before I've been told